One of the things the left is often dependent upon is appealing to authority. A simple appeal to an authority figure like a renowned psychologist or a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist is a wonderful shortcut to bamboozle the unsuspecting citizen to accept the presented leftist viewpoint. This person is important. Look how admired they are. Or, look at those credentials, so they know what they're talking about. But this only works if those with the credentials, with the biggest platforms, and with the most public influence are firmly on the left. So faking authority becomes the norm. By faking authority, I mean the artificial elevation of those who promote leftism with the intention of giving members of the left unwarranted credentials and prestige that will enhance their public influence, advance their careers, and put them in powerful positions so they can continue to champion leftism. But this faking of authority has some larger and more dangerous consequences in society, but probably the most damaging thing about it is the inevitable war on merit that must take place to make all this happen. But this process of faking authority plays out in many forms, like when Glamour puts out its annual Woman of the Year honorees. Some of the winners include far-left environmental activist Greta Thunberg, anti-Trump soccer star Megan Rapinoe, and apocalyptic Handmaid's Tale author Margaret Atwood, who, according to Glamour, her terrifying literary predictions are truer than ever. But I guess this is no surprise. In 2017, Glamour named Linda Sarsour as Woman of the Year, who is also on Elle magazine's Woman to Watch in 2019. People magazine also loves to give leftists awards to help amplify their microphone. This way, the women who are most committed to leftism build out their resumes for speaking appearances and book deals, and the public recognition and wealth follows. In 2018, People magazine's list was dedicated to leftists only. Environmental activists, LGBT activists, race baiters, anti-gun activists. They even have some young children's author who writes books attempting to indoctrinate young children into early-stage Democrat activism. Her newest book, Not My Idea, a book about whiteness, explores racism in America, and she explains it invites young children to connect in an authentic and emotional way to justice. And you know she knows what she's talking about, reading her book next to a cutout of Colin Kaepernick kneeling for the flag. This year, the list is much of the same. 2020 presidential candidates like Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, and Amy Klobuchar were on the list, all of whom were dubbed to be changing the political conversation somehow. Who else? Well, USA Women's Soccer, fighting for equal pay, is on the list. Does it matter that the women's team actually got paid more than the men's team? Of course not. Open borders activists, diversity advocates, it's all there. And of course Greta. How could you not have Time Magazine's Person of the Year on the list? Michelle Obama and Christine Blasey Ford would serve the honors of presenting awards for ESPN and Sports Illustrated too. You know, Michelle Obama, the wife of the Nobel Prize winner Barack Obama, who to this day no one knows why he won the prize, but he did. And Christine Blasey Ford has her own mantle of awards and receives a plethora of public praise. Hell, she was even on the cover of Time magazine herself. You know, Christine Blasey Ford, the woman who made up a fake sexual assault story 36 years ago despite her story not making any sense, and all 4 people whom she claimed could corroborate her story, who not only didn't corroborate her story and said it never happened, but also said her Democrat activist lawyers threatened and intimidated them to try and coerce them into backing her fake story to destroy an innocent man's life. If you run a fake fact-checking site like PolitiFact, you can get not 1, but 2 Pulitzer Prize awards. Those awards will help you give credibility and more people will believe your lies. Speaking of Pulitzer Prizes, did I mention the New York Times and Washington Post also won Pulitzer Prizes for their Russian collusion scandal that never happened? Yep, they did. Make a movie about a gay relationship between a mid-20s man and a minor? Here's your Oscar nomination. Make films that smear Republicans like Dick Cheney? The critical acclaim flows. Make Black Lives Matter music videos lamenting the racism of America? You'll be praised. Hell, the heads of abortion factories can even receive awards for their courage and achievements. Meanwhile, you can't even be Miss America unless you lecture everyone about how healthcare is a right and should be free for everyone. If you want to be Miss America, you have to give the leftist answers. And if you create Black Lives Matter and anti-American advertisements, you are courageous. Here's a nice award to put on your resume, and hopefully you'll rise in the ranks so you'll have an even bigger microphone to promote leftism in the future. Make feminist ads that scold men for being evil? You'll definitely be included on the most influential CMOs list. Add that to your resume. But so what? So what if leftist media outlets give awards and public praise only to lefties? Of course they do this. That's nothing new. Maybe so. But there are much larger consequences here. The point of this video is not to show that leftists praise other leftists, but to highlight the inevitable consequence of this radically advancing trend. The inevitable side effect of this universal Democrat commitment to creating fake authority figures is a total war on the entire concept of merit. Because the last thing leftists want is for the non-political person to know that they give these awards and public recognition not based on things you actually do, but on your level of commitment to leftism. But in order to get away with this, you have to shape the rules in such a way that disregards merit so that you can rationalize giving the awards only to leftists. If you have to give awards based on performance or merit, they can't stack the deck and promote themselves. But if leftism does replace merit, then you can rationalize why an Olympic female fencer who received the bronze bronze medal should be the face of the Olympics instead of Michael Phelps, who broke records for gold medals. By the way, since when does a female Olympian fencer who won the bronze medal get their own Barbie doll? Well, because she wore a hijab. If merit doesn't matter, and instead leftism, you can justify removing the founder of Greenpeace's photo from the Google search results. He may be a founder, but he shouldn't be recognized as such since he calls global warming a fraud. We can't let people think of him as an authority figure. You'll also want to make little mention of Clarence Thomas, the second black man to serve as a Supreme Court justice at the National Museum of African American History and Culture, and instead give the attention to Anita Hill, because, like Christine Blasey Ford, she also falsely accused a non-leftist judge of sexual misconduct. Hell, she still gets speaking engagements for it to this day. In order to create fake authority, they have to change the rules. Merit needs to go. Leftism should be the only criteria. Like when the New York Times film critics suggest evaluating movies not based on their artistic value, but whether they meet diversity initiatives. Or when the British Film Institute announced that 2 of the most prestigious British film awards will only be given to films that meet diversity targets. Even ardent anti-Trump celebrities like Stephen King are getting scolded for suggesting that awards should be given based on performance instead of diversity. If you want to get on the most influential chief marketing officers list, don't talk about how your advertising has grown your sales for your brand. Nope. Instead, talk about your diversity targets and how you're emphasizing equality and inclusion and all that jazz. If your feminist ads end up taking $8 billion losses for your brand, don't worry, you'll still get the honors. After all, you're a martyr who's willing to sacrifice billions for social justice. You may suck at your job because marketing is supposed to make money and not lose it, and you probably figured you could conceal the fact that you're getting your butt kicked by Dollar Shave Club and disguise the fact that you're terrible at your job, so instead you virtue signal and blame the losses on the backlash and that you were just being a martyr for the greater good, and that's why your sales are down. You'll be applauded wherever you go, because you're a hero. Who said anything about merit? But maybe the most destructive consequence of the war on merit, in order to create fake authority figures, is within the education system. It's well known that the beholders of degrees from the Ivy League make more money and are more likely to rise within the corporate ladder, so they must make sure that those who receive the prestigious degrees are leftist champions. So when gun control activist David Hogg can't even get into UCLA with SAT scores well below even the bottom 25% of other students accepted into Harvard, he'll still get in. That way, he'll have a Harvard degree, and people will think he's really smart, and he'll have more credibility and success, and lecture Republicans about how they don't deserve their Second Amendment rights. They must make sure the champions of leftism have all the prestigious academic pedigrees. How else do you think Bill Clinton, Cory Booker, and Pete Buttigieg were once Rhodes Scholars?
It's one of a stunning number of Senate Democrats who have sent children to Harvard University. Senator Bob Menendez of New Jersey is a Harvard parent. So is Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. Schumer sent both his kids to Harvard. Barack Obama sent one of his. So did former New York Governor Eliot Spitzer. The all-time record, though, must go to former Vice President Al Gore. Al Gore sent 4. Imagine that. 4 kids in a row to Harvard. What are the odds of that occurring in nature? Well, statistically, it's about as likely as getting hit by lightning every single day for a year. Andrew Cuomo, the sitting governor of New York, sent one of his kids to Harvard, but the other 2 went to Brown. Michael Bennett, Amy Klobuchar, and Sheldon Whitehouse. All of them sent kids to Yale. So how does this happen? Well, it happens because our meritocracy is a sham. It's fake.
In academia, this faking of authority and destroying of all merit is vital to the left's advancement. They must give their own the prestigious credentials. If you're not woke enough, don't even think you'll be hired. Leftist professors shell out PhDs exclusively to other leftist professors. That way, loony leftist professors can say whatever they want and young people will believe them. They're really smart. Look, they have a PhD in everything. Because if you have a PhD in some subject that sounds important, you may be able to get to a place where 77% of Democrats with 4-year degrees think that sex is not determined at birth. Degrees and professorships will be faked to add prestige and authority to their biggest champions, elevating them to a higher place, giving them a bigger audience so they can push more leftism.
Listen to this. This is what they say. They sent out a letter. They said, "Hi, historians. Join the History Club in the History Department tomorrow for an important and exciting event in response to Ben Shapiro's visit to campus. When provocateurs dabble in history, Ben Shapiro and the Enlightenment will feature speakers and panelists responding to Shapiro's attacks on campuses and academia, along with his new history book." They say, "We're honored to be joined by Dean Angela Dillard, Professor Ann Berg, Professor John Carson, and Professor Hussein Fancy." Oh, they brought professors. Not Ben. Ben's just a provocateur who dabbles in history. They're bringing the real professors. So I said, okay, I bet that these professors are a total joke. It was a hunch I had. Call it a good bet. I got pretty good betting instincts. So I Googled them. Guess what? Turns out I was right for at least half of them. Angela Dillard, she's a dean, already makes me a little suspect of her. She has a BA in Justice, Morality, Constitutional Democracy. So, fake degree, fake undergraduate degree. She has a master's degree in American culture, so fake master's degree, and a PhD in also American culture. So she has 3 or 4 degrees in nothing, in fake everything. That is nothing. I don't know, do I have a degree in American culture? I go to the movies once a week. Is that a degree? Anne Berg, that's the other super historian here. She studies film and public leisure in Nazi Germany, as well as the politics, this is a direct quote, the politics of waste and recycling in the Third Reich. If I were writing The Producers or something, if I were writing a total parody of academia, what I would do, I would have the professor specialize in the politics of waste and recycling in the Third Reich. How frivolous. Total frauds. Ben Shapiro is much more of an historian than those two people. But this is what they do. They have the PhD. They call themselves professor, even though they're not really professors. They have an academic pedigree. Ooh, hee, hee, hee. It's a facade. It's fake. We have fake news. Now we have fake scholarship. Fake academia.
But in order to keep up the fake credentialing, like the film and print industries, you can't retain merit-based advancement. Otherwise, they couldn't guarantee leftists get all the degrees. So again, you have to rewrite the rules to game the system and get your besties all the glory. The standards must be revisited. It's no coincidence the left has been trying to remove ACT and SAT scores from college applications. It's no coincidence the left has been trying to add hardship or economic circumstances in consideration for college acceptance, as opposed to being limited by merit-based academic performance. In STEM fields and in medicine, there are movements to lower the bars so we can enable more activists to acquire such prestigious credentials. It looks a lot better when you have the New York Times or CNN quoting a Yale psychologist or some other PhD know-nothing to echo its lies or talking points, because having the fake authority of credentials helps convince the public that they are very smart and serious scholars. And they're smarter than you, so it's best just to believe them. They're an expert. When you create fake authority, the degrees stack up, and then you can tell a young person that Trump voters are less educated, and therefore dumber than Democrat voters. Search the words uneducated white men and you'll find hundreds of articles about Trump and Trump voters. They brag about it. They brag about how many more degrees Democrats have, and then use it to try and convey that smart people vote Democrat. Aren't you smart? Well, then you should vote Democrat. They omit that being educated does not mean anything other than you received more schooling. It certainly doesn't mean you know or understand the issues that pervade modern politics, because what actually happens is when they test who is more knowledgeable about the actual topics on the ballot, conservatives always win. Because the degree just means you've listened to more psychobabble by professors who have fraudulently acquired meaningless degrees, while the rest of us graduated and went out and got jobs, and they stayed in school. And that makes them smarter, for no reason at all. Write about racism or sexism or whatever leftist trope you want, and you'll be rewarded with honors and academic publications for you to add onto your resume. You'll look more credible with those awards from prestigious-sounding publications. This will help you appeal to authority when someone calls out your stupidity. This will help the Washington Post bring you on to echo their talking points, and insist that people should believe you by citing the professor's fake credentials as evidence of their expertise on the topic. They have to keep conservatives out. They have to prevent conservatives from getting the same credentials and authority and prestige as Democrats they like to push out to lie to you. And the destroying of merit helps them do just that. The more subjective standards become, the easier it becomes to rationalize why accepting David Hogg or Al Gore's kids into Harvard was totally not for partisan reasons. The easier it becomes to give the most militant social justice warriors an MBA or PhD and help them advance their careers so that they can be the professors of tomorrow and continue promulgating leftism. Today's professors didn't spend their entire career indoctrinating young people with leftist garbage, only to have a conservative professor follow in their footsteps and teach young people that the previous professors were nothing but partisan hacks disguised as scholars. The last thing they want is credible Republicans with pedigrees to match their own. Then they'd have to actually prove why what they're saying is true instead of just pointing at the piece of paper. And if successful in destroying merit and ushering more activists with prestigious degrees, the left can gain the power it always seeks. Who do you think are likely to become the judges of the future? Well, the lawyers from those prestigious law firms. And how'd they get those jobs at those prestigious law firms? Well, those prestigious degrees, of course. How else are they going to get activists on the bench? How else will judges find in the Constitution the right of foreigners residing in countries hostile to America and giving them the right to sue the U.S. government for entry? How else will you get judges to interpret constitutional protections out of existence in order to advance leftism? How else are you going to get judges to rule that the Democrat president who issues an unconstitutional executive order to protect illegal immigrants that were born in the U.S. and have a judge block its repeal when a Republican president abolishes the unconstitutional executive order? By faking authority and helping Democrat activists build up their resume resumes with fake credentials and awards so that they can someday get on the bench. By destroying the previous standards of merit and rigging the game to favor Democrats, the left is trying to guarantee that the future leaders of industry, the beholders of public praise and influence, and the future judgeships are exclusively held on the left.
And so when you rig the admissions system, what you're really rigging is American society. And that's exactly what they're doing.